Welcome to the H.I.T podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. We are so excited to be with you every week with what we hope are well-curated, bite-sized, digestible episodes with fantastic content. Today's episode will be no exception. Today's episode is brought to you by Montage Insurance Solutions. And without any further ado, let's get right into it. Our guest today is Jon Orozco. Jon actually came out to our offices here in Calabasas at Montage to do a seminar that was incredibly well received. And I thought, wow, Jon, you know what we do best here at the podcast is take great content and ask people, hey, you went on for an hour or two and have tons of great things to say. Any chance we can get that into 10, 15 minutes, get it bite-sized, and you're game, you're the man, you're able to kind of help us synthesize all the really fantastic things you had to say. So Jon, first and foremost, welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to get a quick little talk, I guess. It's a little bite-sized and we'll kind of go from there.
That's it. No, you're the man. You're the man. So maybe just a real quick overview of kind of your background, who you are, what brings you to the chair today.
Sure. So my name is Jon Orozco. I'm like a fractional chief people officer. Companies typically hire me for short-term assignments in anything HR. I've been a director of HR, VP of HR, and HR executive. So done it all, got my master's in it, and I teach it, and I'm sure I'm certified. So I think I know what I'm doing for the most part.
That's awesome. And some of the conversation that we had here, just to jump right into it, was exploring the idea of the multi-generational workforce. And you had some thoughts on that. I'd be curious to kind of let you run with that.
Sure. I kind of have three ideas of how I want to approach it. One, I always tell people the workforce is changing. By the year 2030, super majority of the baby boomers will retire out. People born from 1946, 64, they're leaving the workforce. Right now, they're the executives and leaders of most places in the workforce. So they're transitioning out and all the millennials and all the Gen Xers are moving up. So that's one criteria. The second one is I tell people is we share more about us and who we are more than we think, right? And the other thing I tell people is Gen Z and Gen Y will make up 60% of the workforce starting this year.
Can I ask you just real quick to unpack that? Because I see those as semi-moving targets and maybe just to kind of orient us to when you use these terms, kind of loosely what you mean.
When I mean that the workforce is changing.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. Let me be more clear with my question. As far as when you Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, absolutely. Boomer, those sorts of things, kind of give us some bearings.
Yeah, absolutely. So the baby boomers are born from 1946, 64. They're during the Cold War. They're the ones that saw JFK get assassinated, MLK get assassinated, the civil rights movement, right? That's the baby boomers. They're really big about family and freedom and individualism, the importance of growing a strong relationships with your employer. And they have typically one employer their whole life. That's a baby boomer. Gen Xers are the ones born 65 to 1980. And I put a squiggly mark because there's a variation.
That's kind of, exactly.
Yeah, they saw the launch of the 24-hour news cycle with CNN. They saw MTV. They saw personal computing and the internet. They saw the O.J. Simpson trial. They saw, the AIDS epidemic that happened in the LA riots. That's really what defines Gen X. And they're really big on being independent and resourceful because they know Social Security might not be there, right? They're also very pragmatic and grounded, right? And they also believe in autonomy and freedom. Those are your Gen Xers, right? And then you have your millennials, those ones born like roughly 1980-ish to around 96. They're really the ones that came to the rise of social media. They're really big on climate change awareness. They were in high school in middle school, high school when September 11th happened. They were there for the Great Recession. They watched their family downsize because of the bubble busting, the bubble burst, and they're really socially conscious and they want to take care of one another, right? So they're highly inclusive. They're a diverse cohort. They don't know anything other than diversity. They lived and breathed it, right? And that's your millennials. And there's a couple more things to them. They're the first group that didn't look to stars to be their heroes. It's influencers, right? And they're very tech savvy. Then you have your Gen Zers between 1997 and 2015, right? They're the ones that saw the Great Recession happening in their households and get impacted recently, right? They're also there. They were in school when we had COVID. Influencers is the way that they get a lot of their information, and they're really big activists, right? They believe in social responsibility, mental health, psychological safety in the workplace, and they value being inclusive to everybody, regardless of who their identity is.
Right on. And then I know we don't have to deal with it just yet, but it's my understanding the next crop of folk are going by Gen Alpha. Is that kind of what we've landed
Yeah,
on?
the Gen Alpha started 2016 forward. They'll you'll start seeing most of them are eight. The oldest one is 8 years old.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we kind of have our bearings on what we mean loosely again. And I know there's asterisks and these are kind of, they're not hard lines where it's like, if you're born on January 5th, yes, January 6th, no, right? I get that part, but we kind of loosely have definitions of what you mean as you use these sort of terms. And so now when you're talking about the intermingling within a company, and I can sort of graph that onto different ages, talk to me about what you're talking about with the changing workforce and sort of where we left off when I took us down this bunny trail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So by 2030, let's just look at today, right? Today, if you were looking at what is the population size of people in the workforce, baby boomers in the workforce today, there's about 17 million. This is as January 2024, right? Gen Z, 17 million. They're equal in number. Millennials, they're about 50 million, right? The Gen Y, 50 million. And then boomers, you're looking about 40 something million. I'd say 40, 46, 47, 40, somewhere around there, right? So right now, millennials are the number one. Gen X's are starting to, again, transition out because some of them have got some really good ways to retire early. So they're going to, they're on their way out, but boomers are equal to the Gen Zers. So you're starting to see a shift in the culture of most companies because Gen Zers and Gen Ys are one and the same. I tell people a Gen Z is a Gen Y on Red Bull.
Okay.
Yeah. They're siblings, so that they speak the language a lot. They're super inclusive. They really believe in taking care of one another, and they value psychological safety and making sure everybody's well.
So that Gen Y, does that mean that I have to start saying things like mid and cap?
Yeah, for real. Like that's what I do that kidding to my nephew. I'm like, dude, you're being mid right now.
Oh no, yes, good. Well, let's keep standing on business and
Yeah.
get the meat of this conversation. So
Yeah.
I understand the shifting dynamics. I understand as some folks go out and other folks come in, company cultures change. But talk to me about what does that mean? When you say you study this and you talk about this, what are some of the things that folks listening should be aware of or look to the future
Sure.
for?
The way we see work-life balance is going to change. The way we see retirement is going to change. The way we see loyalty to an employer has already changed, right? And the best way to do this is this. Loyalty to an employer for baby boomers was one employer for life. And the reason why, which I don't know if you know this, the reason why they're loyal to life is they got three things that most people weren't aware of. One was the pension. You work there 30 plus years, you're guaranteed payment. The other one that most people don't know about is you get what's called legacy benefits. So legacy benefits is once you hit at least 30 years with an employer, they pay for your medical for life.
Right.
Yeah. And most people that doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Right. And the other thing is and the last one, the third benefit is your family members got it too.
Right.
So you got it and the rest of your family got insurance for life.
Right.
So why would you leave an employer that's giving you a pension, paying for your medical, and taking care of your family?
Right.
Right. That went away. That got discontinued in the 70s. Right. So Gen Xers don't have that experience anymore. So that's when the 401k got introduced and they started saving for retirement. Okay, no pension, but I'll start putting stuff away. They started asking for telework, which is now known as remote work. They started asking for flexibility in their schedule, work-life balance. And Gen Xers also started the whole let's fund startups so we can make money. That's where it came from. So boomer money, but it was the Gen Xers that started the internet.
Right. And so when you said that a lot of the Gen X are leaving because they found creative ways to retire early, that was my thought.
Yeah.
Is someone were like, hey, look, I launched a company that I've sold, right? And so now
Yes,
I can go
100%.
do the back half of my career, consulting or whatever, right?
Absolutely. A lot of them were if they're in the right place at the right time, they got into startups that made them 1,000x of what they put in, So good.
One of the things that interested me about your kind of thesis on different generations in the workforce is you think was it 3 or 4 things that kind of run across all the generations? And I would love to hear you talk about that.
Yes. So at the core of, I say they're all different and they speak different languages, but they all have 4 values that came from the greatest generation. And that's people from 1900 to 1927. They believed in patriotism, being resilient during hard times, sacrifice and dedication to hard work. It's 4 values: personal responsibility, a strong work ethic, frugality, and commitment to your employer and community and to one another. So those 4 values of personal responsibility, which is I'll take care of my family, I'll work hard and necessary, I'll cut back on things that I might personally indulge in to make sure my community exists. that I'll go to war for them. I'll take care of my country. I'll take care of, my people, right? The strong work ethic is they'll work 80 hours a week, which, what's the norm. When you got to put food on the table, you work super hard to get there, right? And then that commitment, you have one relationship. You typically have one spouse for life, one employer for life, one community for life. You don't move. You stay. You homestead, and you build out your nest.
So you're saying that was true of the greatest generation, but you're saying that those sort of pillars have created a legacy across multiple generations, and they show back up today in interesting ways in each new generation's kind of flavor on those.
Absolutely. So it changed because of technology, time, and information, right? What I mean by that is, so when the greatest generation around, they typically read one full newspaper a day of information. Today, Gen Zers and Gen Yers get about 50 newspapers full of information a day because of our tablets, our devices that just give us a fire hose of information, whether it's TV, anywhere they read, it's nonstop information.
Yeah. So yeah, I do get that evolved, but I guess what I'm trying to drill down on is how do these pillars that you say so when I hear about, one employer for life, and I think about younger folks today, I don't think that's true, right? So how are you mapping some of those values onto the younger generations in the workforce today?
Let me give you an example. So when we talk about commitment, so it talks about the commitment to your employer. Now it's commitment to one another. Gen Z is like, I want to make sure that my coworkers are safe, that they feel that I'll take care of them, that I'll stick up for them. They make a commitment to one another.
Right.
That's what I mean by that. It's not to a corporate document that's the LLC or the corporation. It's to everyone in the community there and their community. They also have a commitment to the environment.
Yeah.
So the word commitment comes up, right? And that building that strong relationship is part of the other component where they want to make sure that, hey, I want to make sure that you're seen, safe, and secure with me, right?
Yeah.
And then that self-reliance is now there's that side hustle. They're going to work hard, but they're going to get the Uber Eats. They're going to do, ride shares. They're going to do these things to make money to keep grinding, right? Global awareness. It's beyond their community, but they see their community globally. So they want to take care of one another, but also are mindful that their decisions have an impact around the world, right? So community is that global perspective. So it's grown. They're still do that pillar of commitment, but they're more conscious of what's going around them around the world.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I guess so. As an employer listening, for someone like you that has really done a ton of studying on different generations, what is it maybe something that you would want to tell that employer, hey, listen, be aware of this or take note of that?
Sure. I would say to most employers is a millennial or Gen Y and a Gen Z might not be with you for 30 years, but they might stay with you for 3 years. And if you want to get 3 quality years out of them, give them 6 or 12-month milestones on skills that you can train them, upskill them up, and they'll stay longer. Hey, it's better than them ghosting you and being gone the next day. They'll stay 3-4 years if you give them milestones and skills you can teach them. They're hungry learners, are eager to be mentored. Their perspective is they have no chance of buying a house. They have no chance at, almost 0% chance of buying a house with the 500K medium for a home today. But they know that if they work hard, they can eventually get to their idea of a dream. The American dream has changed for them, but it doesn't mean it's gone. It's just different, right? So understand that your perspective doesn't mean that they're bad workers. They're a different type of worker because the conditions that existed 30 years ago don't exist today, right? So I say be kinder than necessary, and don't assume that they're just terrible workers because they're younger. They want to learn and grow, but they also need some coaching. They need some guidance, and then just be patient with them. When they say something, it's because they don't have that calibration in the corporate world. And I say corporate world loosely, right? Whether it's 500K employees or 20 employees, they'll stay as long as they feel engaged and respected. Yeah. If you disrespect them or their colleagues, they'll probably leave and ghost you the next day.
Right. Yeah, I feel like the ghosting is something that we're all trying to contend with this age. So maybe just to bring us home as we talk about kind of generational studies going into this, one last thing that maybe we haven't touched on yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, if you learn to build connections instead of putting up walls saying, hey, my generation is different than yours, we don't connect. You do connect because we all share more than we think, right? And you're going to find some commonalities with one another. And if you can understand and meet them where they're at, whether it's, like I tell people, sometimes you need to learn that they don't want to call you, they'll want to text you. And then text and then say, hey, can you give me a quick call? They'll probably give that give and take.
Yeah.
So part of building connection is being willing to meet them where they're at, and also give and take, like most relationships.
Yeah, it's funny how there's an expectation that you'll get a warning text. Like if you just call them out of the blue, like, who is this monster just dialing the phone?
100%. But if you text me, hey, I need to call you in 5 minutes, great. Then I'm queued up,
Yeah.
and then I'm in the right place to have that call.
Yes. I have centered my chi in order to field a phone call. Yeah. Well,
100%.
right on, man. I appreciate it. And I think it's fun to kind of take these looks at different folks in the workforce, and someone like you who studied it so well is just, it's so expert. It's so valuable for our audience. So Jon, I really, really appreciate your time, man.
No worries. It's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for you this week here on the podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, TrueHue. Join us next week. Join us every week. And until next week, make this the best week yet.